All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we're diving deep into some fascinating stuff. We're talking about a recent interview with Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah. Always good for some interesting insights.
Right. This is from that YouTube video on the PBD podcast. The title is Donald Trump Gets Emotional Speaks on Tariffs, Obama and Iran, PBD Podcast 489.
You've done your homework.
You know it. But this deep dive is extra juicy, right? Because Trump isn't just any former president. He's this triple threat. Business, media, politics, he's conquered them all.
A true trifecta winner. So what can we learn from a guy like that? I'm ready.
Me too. Okay, so let's jump right in. Trump's take on Obama's economic legacy was a real head-turner for me.
Yeah, always a bit of a hot-button topic.
He's totally convinced that any good stuff happening in the economy during Obama's time was actually because of what he, Trump, had already set in motion.
Interesting.
He even throws out this number, 75 straight months of job growth that he claims Obama just walked right into.
Huh. It's like he's saying, hey, all the good stuff, that's all me.
Exactly. But it goes deeper. He says Obama's whole message just doesn't land with undecided voters, especially black men. And he even claims his support among black male voters has doubled since 2016.
Wow, now that's a claim worth digging into. What's driving those shifts in political allegiance? Is it all about the economy, or is there something more going on?
It's a puzzle, for sure. Okay, ready for a story?
Hit me.
Trump talks about this moment with Van Jones, the CNN guy. He's practically in tears, begging Trump for criminal justice reform in the Oval Office.
Oh, it's easy to forget that politics is a human game.
Right. It's not just policies and numbers. There are real people with real emotions driving it all.
Absolutely.
So Trump paints this picture of himself wrangling votes from all these tough conservative senators, showing off those deal-making skills.
Classic Trump, always the deal maker.
And then here comes the twist.
Whoa.
He's actually kind of bitter that Jones never thanked him publicly, even calls him a sleazebag.
Oof, what a roller coaster. It makes you think about how tricky those political alliances can be, right?
For sure. Alrighty, let's talk media. We all know how Trump feels about them.
Never one to hold back his opinions.
He straight up claims that he's the reason nobody trusts the mainstream media anymore. Even drops a Gallup poll showing trust hitting an all-time low in 2024.
It's true that concerns about media bias were simmering long before Trump, but he definitely brought it all to a boil.
Oh yeah, and you can't forget the fake news bomb he dropped.
Oh, that infamous press conference. It was like a seismic shift in how we talk about news and information.
Absolutely. Okay, ready for something a little lighter? Well, kind of. Tariffs.
Ah, yes, Trump's favorite word.
He's so into them, he actually says tariff is more beautiful than love.
And you can tell he believes in them deeply. He even talks about Tim Cook, the Apple CEO, calling him up to complain about tariffs.
And get this, he claims Steve Jobs wouldn't have been as good as Cook at running Apple. Now that's a spicy take.
It definitely challenges our assumptions about what makes a successful tech leader.
Then he goes on to say how he used tariffs to single-handedly stop those Chinese car plants from popping up in Mexico. Like he's some kind of economic superhero protecting American jobs.
You can see how he sees tariffs as this powerful weapon, a way to reshape global trade on his terms. But whether they're truly effective in the long run, well, that's a debate for another day.
No doubt about that.
Okay.
Time to shift gears to international relations. Starting with Iran, Trump lays it out. Sanctions, sanctions, sanctions. That's his playbook to force Iran to ditch those nuclear dreams.
Classic America First strategy. It's all about projecting strength, putting American interests first, and not shying away from going it alone.
Right. And he tells this story about some big shot in the Middle East confirming that those sanctions worked. But then he drops this bomb. Nuclear warming, not global warming, is the real threat we should worry about.
That's a framing that puts national security front and center, maybe even ahead of environmental concerns.
Exactly. And of course, he has to bring up Ukraine. He says the war wouldn't have happened on his watch.
Impossible to say for sure, but it shows how he sees himself on the world stage. The ultimate deal maker, the strong man who can keep the peace.
All right, before we jump into the next part of this deep dive, let's take stock. What's resonating with you so far?
Well, you can see how consistent Trump is. His beliefs and priorities haven't really changed. Economy first, distrust the media, and America as a global power. It's like peeking into the inner workings of his mind.
I totally agree. It's like we're getting this raw, unfiltered look at his operating system. And we've only just scratched the surface. In the next part, we're going to dive into a side of Trump we don't often see, the personal side. Family, vulnerability, the man behind the curtain.
Can't wait. Welcome back, folks. We're knee-deep in this Trump interview, and it's a wild ride.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground already. Economy, media, tariffs, you name it. But now I'm kind of curious to see what's behind the curtain, the personal side of Trump.
It's easy to forget that these larger-than-life figures have families, personal lives, just like the rest of us.
Exactly. So he talks a bit about his son, Barron, calls him smart, tough, not your average 18-year-old. Sounds like a proud dad moment.
Yeah, and it's funny, right? Those are all qualities Trump likes to emphasize about himself. Strength, intelligence, exceptionalism. Almost like he's projecting those values onto his son.
It's like a blueprint for the Trump man image.
Maybe. He even tells this cute story about Barron asking him to say hi to the interviewer.
Ah, I know, right? A little peek behind the scenes, a glimpse of normalcy amidst all the political talk.
It reminds us that he's not just a politician, he's a dad, too. And then the interviewer throws out this interesting framework for father-son relationships, idolizing, demonizing, and humanizing.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. What do you think he was getting at there?
Maybe trying to get Trump to reflect on his own relationship with his father, or maybe how he sees himself in the public eye.
Idolized, demonized, humanized. It's a powerful way to think about it.
Definitely. And then, bam, they play this clip of Trump getting all choked up during a rally speech.
I know. Did not expect that. We're so used to seeing him all tough and confident. It was really, really humanizing.
It makes you wonder, right, how much of his public persona is genuine, how much is calculated?
It's the million-dollar question. And as he's thinking about running again, it makes it even more important.
Right. Will this softer, more vulnerable side of Trump play a role in the campaign? Will voters even buy it?
It all goes back to that framework, right? Idolizing, demonizing, humanizing. Maybe we're starting to see a shift in public perception, moving beyond those extremes and acknowledging the complexities of the man.
That's an insightful point. Maybe, just maybe, we can start to have a more nuanced conversation about his place in American politics.
It's like we're peeling back the layers of an onion, revealing something unexpected underneath.
Okay.
So we've touched on his personal life, seen a bit of that vulnerability, but there's this big question hanging over everything.
The big question.
What about his political ambitions? He's clearly not done with the political stage, and his potential return raises a ton of questions about the future of America, the future of the world.
Absolutely. So in our last segment, we're going to dive headfirst into those questions. What does he stand for? What's his vision for America? What would a second Trump presidency actually look like? Buckle up, folks.
Okay, we're back for the final stretch of this Donald Trump interview deep dive, and things are about to get really real.
The big question, right? Is he running again?
That's the elephant in the room, isn't it? What would a Trump 2.0 presidency even look like? Same old, same old? Or would he switch things up?
Tough to say.
Well, he spends a lot of time talking about Ukraine. Says he could have totally prevented the whole thing.
Yeah, I noticed that.
He even says that if he were elected again, he could settle it before even stepping foot in the Oval Office.
Bold claim.
Right. It's like he sees himself as this master negotiator, the only one who can bring peace to the world. But would that actually work? Who knows?
It's a gamble, that's for sure.
He also brings up Iran, talks about how his sanctions worked before, and how he thinks they'd be begging to make a deal with him.
So still sticking with that America first approach then.
Seems like it. Putting American interests first, using those economic levers to get what he wants. Maybe he thinks those personal relationships he built with world leaders will give him an edge.
Could be.
But then he throws this in. Nuclear warming, not global warming, is the real danger we need to focus on.
Interesting. So national security trumps climate change, just like in his first term.
Right. It's a reminder that being president means making tough choices, prioritizing some things over others. And speaking of priorities, he still loves those tariffs.
Oh, yeah. Can't forget about those.
He actually calls the word tariff more beautiful than love. I mean, come on.
He's nothing if not consistent in his beliefs.
Totally. So it sounds like a Trump 2.0 presidency would be like a greatest hits album, Some familiar tunes, but maybe with a new spin on them.
Yeah, but remember, the world's a different place than it was a few years ago. China's on the rise. We've got this war in Ukraine. The economy's a whole different ballgame. He'd have to adapt.
It's like a sequel, right?
Yeah.
You know what to expect, but there are bound to be some surprises.
Exactly. So the big question is, will he be able to handle all these challenges? Will his playbook even work anymore? And how would it all affect, well, us, regular folks?
These are the questions we need answers to. And as we get closer to 2024, things will start to get clearer. One thing's for sure, it's going to be a wild ride.
You said it. So what should our listeners be keeping an eye on as this unfolds?
I think it's important to tune out the noise and really focus on what he's actually saying. What are his policies? How would they impact people's lives? Do they even make sense in today's world?
Great advice. It's easy to get swept up in the drama, but at the end of the day, it's the policies that matter.
Absolutely. So stay informed, folks. Have those tough conversations. And most importantly, vote.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into the mind of Donald Trump. Thanks for sticking with us through all the twists and turns.
It's been quite the journey.
It has. And as this story continues to unfold, you can bet we'll be right here with you, breaking it all down. Until next time.
See ya then.